You assume the purpose of life is to find God. You imagine a distance to be crossed, a discovery to be achieved. Yet Ibn Arabi questioned the entire project. He said, you do not meet God at the end of a path. You remember the awareness you began with and forgot. The search appears noble, but it is built on an unnoticed premise that God is absent. Remembrance denies that premise. It says presence was never interrupted. What you call seeking is the first motion of recollection already at work. The path does not lead to presence. The path is the way absence dissolves. If this is true, then the one who searches is not moving toward the real at all. The searcher is the veil. The remembrance is the removal. Ibn Arabi lived in 12th century Andalusia, where proofs and revelations competed for authority. Philosophers argued by reason. Mystics argued by unveiling. He stepped beyond the contest. He taught Wahdat al-Wujud, the unity of being, and framed remembrance dhikr as the return of awareness to its own origin. God is neither demonstrated nor discovered. He is recognized. For Ibn Arabi, knower and knowing are one act. Religion, philosophy, and psychology converge here. Awareness does not acquire the real. Awareness remembers it. Remembrance is not a ritual formula. It is the structure of consciousness recovering itself from misidentification. You seek because you believe something is missing. Yet the impulse to seek arises only because what is sought already moves within you. A desire points to its object by existing at all. Ibn Arabi explained that seeking can become a subtle denial. By looking for God as future, you quietly affirm present absence. The journey appears to honor God, but it also postpones him. The more distant the goal, the safer the ego that manages the trip. Remembrance ends this postponement. It does not add anything. It subtracts the assumption that distance is real. If the goal is present, the travel narrative collapses. What, then, is the seeker seeking achievement, reassurance, or the end of the seeker? You think forgetfulness is failure. Ibn Arabi reframed it as instrument. The real conceals himself in manifestation so that recognition can occur as an event of awareness. Without veiling, there would be nothing to unveil. Forgetfulness is not punishment. It is the condition that grants meaning to remembrance. You forget, not to be lost, but to make the return intelligible. This changes responsibility. The task is not to manufacture presence, but to stop funding the story of absence. The veil is functional, but it is not final. If forgetfulness belongs to the design, then remembrance cannot be personal triumph. It is the design completing itself. You tend to treat remembering as recalling an item from the past. Ibn Arabi described remembrance as awakening rather than retrieval. It is not a movement in time. It is a clarification of being. When you say, "I remember," the statement can mislead. The pronoun claims accomplishment. But in genuine remembrance, the I that claims dissolves. Awareness recognizes awareness. No object is added. No knowledge is acquired. A confusion ends. The mind stops projecting distance and simply aligns with what is already the case. Remembrance is therefore precise. It is the removal of misidentification. If remembrance is self-recognition, the question shifts. Who remembers whom? The most accurate answer is modest. Remembrance remembers. You think you are the one who remembers. Yet the you that speaks is the structure that forgets. The ego is awareness identified with limitation. It is a claim of ownership over experience. Ibn Arabi analyzed this as a shift in attribution. Awareness says, mine, and becomes partial. In that contraction, God appears distant. Remembrance does not strengthen the ego with spiritual content. It weakens the claim of ownership altogether. What remains is awareness without appropriation. In such clarity, remembrance occurs naturally. If the one who boasts of remembering vanishes in the act, there is no personal merit to defend. There is only accuracy. Awareness no longer mimics being separate. You imagine knowledge as acquisition. Ibn Arabi reversed the direction. True knowledge is recognition. It does not add a new piece. It aligns the knower with what was implicit. The heart already knows what the mind keeps trying to prove. Proof can refine attention, but proof cannot produce the real. Recognition collapses the duality between subject and object. Instead of I know God, the grammar becomes lighter. Knowing happens. Separation loosens. Presence stands. Revelation, then, is not the delivery of new content. It is the disarming of an old assumption. If nothing is added when remembrance arrives, what precisely arrives? Not fact freedom from misreading. Ibn Arabi pressed the insight further. When you remember God, it is not a human act performed for a distant deity. It is the real remembering himself through the locus of your awareness. The actor, the act, and the remembered are one event. This does not erase responsibility. It redefines it. Responsibility becomes willingness to stop misattributing awareness to a separate owner. Your remembrance is his self-recognition. Your clarity is his disclosure. In this view, piety is precision. Devotion is accuracy. Pride has nothing to grasp because achievement belongs nowhere. If remembrance is God's own movement, then the most faithful posture is consent, letting the recognition occur without personal advertisement. What happens to seeking when remembrance stabilizes? The engine stalls. There is nowhere to arrive. The schedule of spiritual milestones loses leverage. Ibn Arabi described the final movement not as discovery, but as return awareness returning to its original position. Time loses authority over presence. The future no longer holds God hostage. Practice persists, but as expression rather than pursuit. You continue to study, reflect, and serve, not to achieve nearness, but to clarify nearness that cannot be improved. When the pursuit ends, what continues to move? Function continues. Thought works, speech occurs, action unfolds. But the owner of the motion is gone. What remains is service without self-congratulation. Stillness is not blankness. It is the absence of negotiation. The mind stops bargaining with presence. Ibn Arabi spoke of a calm that arises when attribution is corrected. The real to the real, the contingent to the contingent. Awareness rests in awareness. This rest is not passivity. It is unconflicted action. You do what fits, without staging a drama of arrival. Remembrance now functions as attention, as ethics, as ordinary clarity. The measure is simple. Less assertion, more accuracy. Less commentary, more coherence. You do not display remembrance. You practice it as correct attribution in each moment. Where is God? Not ahead, not behind. Present as the ground of each thought that notices. How does one live this without performance? Ibn Arabi would answer, by adopting disciplines that protect recognition from forgetfulness. Repetition of meaningful names, reflective reading, conscientious action. Examination of motive, all of these redirect attribution. The question under each deed becomes, who is claiming this? If the answer is a separate owner, pause. If the answer is awareness moving as duty, proceed. Relationships shift from possession to trust. Work shifts from self-advancement to stewardship. Worship shifts from pleading to acknowledgement. None of this is spectacle. It is simple accuracy. Return attention to the origin of attention, again and again, until the habit of distance loses fuel. Practice, then, is remembrance maintaining itself. You began by imagining a meeting with God somewhere beyond the horizon of your life. You planned routes. You counted steps. Now the plan looks unnecessary. Ibn Arabi's secret idea is unadorned. There is no meeting. There is remembering. The distance you negotiated was the mind's project. Presence required only correct attribution. Remembrance is the real knowing himself where you stand. The seeker was the veil. The remembrance is the removal. What remains is not triumph, but precision. Not an ending, but accuracy. You do not move toward God. You consent to the clarity that God has never moved away. In that consent, the question falls quiet. What you sought has been the one who was aware of seeking.